All right, so we are jumping to Unit 4 first for this year, which is kicking us off in Europe. So, for an overview of what we're going to be looking at in this unit, we will be looking at identifying major physical features of Europe, describing the different types of climates in Europe, discussing the economies of Europe, and explaining the groups of people that make up Europe. So, this is a map of Europe, and as you can see, there are many different countries. Europe is actually pretty small compared to the United States. So, as you learn about Europe, you're going to find out that some of these countries can fit inside states in the United States, or they're the same size as certain states. And you'll notice that there are a lot of bodies of water surrounding Europe, which we will be talking about as well. So Europe juts out westward from Asia. So it is what we call a peninsula. It is a great peninsula that breaks into smaller peninsulas and larger islands. And a peninsula is a piece of land that's surrounded by water on three sides. So if you look, you have water here. So it swoops all the way around Europe. Okay? So this makes Europe one big peninsula, and then it has smaller peninsulas. Like there's a peninsula here, another peninsula here, peninsula here, peninsula here. Okay, so Europe is one big peninsula that breaks down into smaller peninsulas. There are many bodies of water that actually touch Europe's coast, and these include the Arctic and the Atlantic Ocean. There's the North Baltic and Mediterranean Seas, and then there's also some deep bays and inlets, such as the Bay of Biscay. You have that area right here. You have the English Channel over here, okay? And there's smaller bodies of water in here up around Italy and Greece, okay? So there's all different seas and inlets and bays. Europe also has the Strait of Gibraltar and the Bay of Biscay. Those are two main areas in Europe for bodies of water. Europe also has mountains that sweep across most of the continent. These include the Pyrenees, the Carpathians, and the Alps. So if you look on this map, so the Alps run along countries like Switzerland, Italy, which are right over here. Okay, the Carpathians are over here in this area, which is running close to where Russia and the countries that the USSR used to control are kind of over in this area. And then you can't see the Pyrenees, but they're off where Spain is. Europe also has many plains. So the main plain that we talk about when we're talking about world geography is the North European plain. And Europe also has rivers that link coastal ports and inland population centers. In Western Europe, you have the Rhine, which flows northwest from the Alps until it empties into the North Sea. And then you have the Danube, which winds through Eastern Europe, which is bound for the Black Sea. So these are main river outlets in Europe. And again, this is a map of Europe. Now, this kind of map is what we call a physical map. It is showing us mountains, which are these brownish areas here. Okay, these are all mountainous areas over here and here. Okay, and then the greens are more of our flatlands. So the climate, despite its northern location, Europe enjoys a relatively mild climate. An ocean current, which is known as the North Atlantic Current, brings warm water and winds to Europe's western shores. So this allows northwestern Europe to enjoy mild temperatures all year and plentiful rainfall. And countries along the Mediterranean Sea have hot, dry summers and mild winters. So it doesn't get as cold as the United States gets here. They do have more of a mild winter than what we see. The region's northernmost countries have longer, colder winters than the southern countries, just like in the United States. Florida, like when you go south, is warmer than when we're here. So Europe does have that same range, but their winters are not as cold as ours. Vegetation varies from one climate zone to another, and in the Scandinavia's far north, there is mostly mosses and small shrubs along the tundra-like landscape. So the higher up you get, the more you get this tundra-like landscape, which is like ice and cold weather. In the northwestern and eastern Europe, grasslands and forests cover the rolling land. Further south, drought-resistant shrubs and small trees cover the hills. So this is a map that looks at the climate of Europe, and these are the different climate zones that you can be in based on the color. So if you were looking at Spain, Spain has mostly cold, semi-arid climate, some warm Mediterranean climate, some temperate oceanic climate, a little bit of this purpley color, which is the cool continental, temperate continental, or Mediterranean continental climate. Okay, and then there's some of this temperate Mediterranean climate too. Okay, so you would look at it this way. Up here, where like you have Sweden, Norway, and Finland, you have a lot of cool continental climate, so subarctic climate, meaning that it can get very, very cold. So the economy in Europe has an abundance of key natural resources, waterways, and ports that make it a global economic power. Agriculture, manufacturing, and service industries dominate the region's economies. Some of the most productive farmlands can be found in Europe. It has fertile black soil where farmers can get bountiful harvests. They harvest things like grains, fruits, and vegetables. Farms also house sheep and cattle. Offshore, they have vast reserves of oil and natural gas. They have rich deposits of iron ore, coal, and other minerals. And Europe is actually the birthplace of what we call the Industrial Revolution, which is when we start making more machines and relying more on technology and just improving our way of life. So key natural resources, waterways and ports, productive farming, and mineral resources all help to fuel this Industrial Revolution because they needed to run the machines on fuel. So today, countries like France, Germany, Italy, Poland, and the United Kingdom rank among the world's top manufacturing centers, and we have the Industrial Revolution to thank for that. For the people next to Asia in location and in figure of speech, Europe is the most densely populated continent on the earth, meaning there are a ton of people living there. In some countries, such as Sweden, most people belong to the same ethnic group. So there are a lot of people that look similar in Sweden, same skin tone, and it's just because of the way that country developed over the years. Other countries, though, have several ethnic groups that make them up, and some groups get along well with others, and then others do have tension. So it's kind of like some countries do have what we're experiencing in America with some ethnic group tensions. Europe has a rich cultural heritage that can date back thousands of years. Europe is a lot older than we are as a continent. Many European cities have ancient ruins, Gothic cathedrals from the Middle Ages, medieval times, and Renaissance sculptures. Europeans have explored the world and spread their culture everywhere. And sometimes they did this in not the nicest way, as in Christopher Columbus. He was a horrible person, but history books and history classes in school tend to fluff over the fact that he was this evil person that went in and destroyed ways of life. But by exploring, settling, and conquering the lands that he did, he was able to spread culture, and some say that's what makes him important. He still was not a nice guy. He still did it in the wrong way, but he did help spread culture, and so did the other explorers that went out at that time. And Cortez and stuff, he wasn't nice either. So a lot of the explorers didn't really do it in a nice way. Competition between European countries has led to two major wars in the past century. So we've got World War I and World War II as a result of European countries competing with each other. Communist and anti-communist countries have been bitterly divided, but now many of the countries all joined what we call the European Union. So this European Union is just a way to unite these countries so that they're working together instead of against each other. And here's another map of some of the countries that we will be going over in the European unit. Okay, so now that we've gone over the PowerPoint, I do want to explain to you guys the worksheet that does go with it so you know what's expected of you. You need to define these terms, and you can use Google. I'm giving you permission now to use Google to look up these terms in Google, and you're just going to copy and paste the definition here. Once you do that, I want you to use the PowerPoint presentation that I just went over to answer these questions. So number 1 says, what bodies of water border and touch Europe? List their names. So you're going to go through the slideshow and find which slide gives you that answer. For 2, what mountains are located in Europe? List them all. So look through the slideshow to find that. What is the North Atlantic Current? We do talk about that in one of the slides, so you're going to go back to the slide that talks about the North Atlantic Current. So you're going to look for these words. I can highlight them so you know what words are important to look for in the PowerPoint. Okay, so then we have why is Europe's climate relatively mild? Okay, you're going to look for why it's relatively mild. Okay, what is the reason behind it? What is vegetation like in Europe? You're going to look that up and just tell me what it says about the different areas and vegetation. Okay, natural resources you're going to look for. And list as many as you can find in the PowerPoint. What revolution helped Europe? Okay, there's a name to it. Just try to find that. And what are some parts of Europe's culture that date back thousands of years? So you're going to look for where it talks about Europe's culture. And then how did Europe's culture spread to other parts of the world? And again, you're going to look for the culture. Okay? And once you've answered these questions, you can submit this activity, okay, for a grade.